This changes everything as the Pittsburgh Steelers are about to break the NFL following a massive new report that has dropped surrounding their head coaching search that not only has fans very fired up, but quite frankly is way better than we initially thought. We're going to break that down and discuss what it means going forward, as well as the latest updates on multiple Steelers at the moment, including their assistant GM, but also the latest news on Mike McCarthy and their head coaching search surrounding him. Ton to go over today, but you're going to want to stay tuned for it because it is a very action-packed filled episode, including one piece of information that is sure to have you guys excited. But before we get into it, a quick thank you for all your guys' support. Truly means the world to me. You guys have been unbelievable. Now, folks, let's dive right into the video because there's a lot to go over today. Now, I want to dive right into the report here. You can see, report, per Albright NFL, the Pittsburgh Steelers head coach search seems to be trending in Chris Shula's way, but Brian Flores is also still in the mix. It was also noted that Chris Shula could bring in Nate Scheelhaase in as the team's offensive coordinator. Now, there's been a lot of rumblings lately about Mike McCarthy, and we do have an update surrounding that, which is a little bit less, I guess good, and at least in our eyes, a little bit less encouraging. But this is very big, and you can see this tweet kind of blew up here, trending in Chris Shula's direction. And you look at the odds, you look at all these different things, it seems to be trending that way. And this would be the perfect fit, and I think would break the NFL if you have the wizardry of Chris Shula and then the offensive wizardry of Nate Scheelhaase. We have another report to dive into in a minute, and you're going to want to stay tuned because there's a lot more information in this video. But before we get into all those new updates and reports, a quick reminder, this video is brought to you by Kalshi. And if you download it using the link below and use code DIGESTNFL, yes, code DIGESTNFL, then you will get $20 when you trade your first 100. And folks, Kalshi is the largest prediction market in the United States. We're on their platform. You can trade yes or no on real life events, sports, elections, news, pretty much everything. And whether you're in California, Texas, or anywhere else across the country, Kalshi is live in all 50 states. And for us sports fans, you can trade on game outcomes, playoff chances, player performances, all in a regulated market where you can cash out at any time, folks. And you can even trade on, of course, who the next Pittsburgh Steelers head coach will be. And Chris Shula right now is leading the charge. 54% chance. So if you trade $100 on Chris Shula being the Steelers' next head coach, you will win 186. Folks, it's genuinely a smarter way to use your sports or news knowledge. You can close positions whenever you want. So make sure to download Kalshi with the link in the description. And don't forget to use code DIGESTNFL to get your $20 bonus. So thank you once again to Kalshi for sponsoring this video. Let's get back into the news. And this is obviously a very encouraging report. Now, we saw this drop yesterday, but we've also been seeing a lot of other information and other new rumors, reports, all these different things. You can see here, it still feels like Shula for the Steelers and Clint Kubiak for the Ravens, a couple of famous football families that could inherit the best rivalry in the NFL. And this is a good point. If the Steelers get Chris Shula, they can go out now and really, for me, again, I'm a big Chris Shula guy. I have been, if you've been following the channel now, ever since the head coaching search has gotten underway. If you bring in Nate Scheelhaase as well. Now, Chris Shula is obviously currently the defensive coordinator for the Los Angeles Rams. They're still in the playoffs. You're going to have to wait for that to finish. Their defense has been fantastic, and it's one of the bottom paid defenses in the NFL. And for them to be doing what they're doing with the, players that they have, and no disrespect to the Rams players, they have some great, defensive players. It is incredible. Now, you take a guy, Nate Scheelhaase, who is known around the league as an offensive mastermind, and you bring him into whatever offense the Steelers end up running, which is probably going to be either they trade for a quarterback, they get a draft pick, they maybe use Will Howard. That's what Ben Roethlisberger has been wanting the Steelers to do. It is just a recipe for success, no matter what way you put it. Now, you look at their kind of offense heading into next year. Now, keep in mind, they don't really update the depth chart. Aaron Rodgers is not a Steeler at this moment, but they just keep it there in the meantime. Like, you have some good pieces. Now, the wide receiving room, it needs some work. It currently consists of Calvin Austin, DK Metcalf, and MVS if he sticks around. Of course, they made some signings recently. Max Hurleman, John Reese Plumlee. Of course, you have special teams guy Ben Skronik, recent draft pick Roman Wilson. I would love to see what they can do with Nathan Scheelhaase because of just all the different ways they can use it. Now, on the flip side, there's been some rumblings about, from Mark Hubley saying that the Steelers head coach favorite is currently Mike McCarthy. And he's saying that if they hire Mike McCarthy, they are running it back. I'll have a full video covering that. I don't know if I believe that report too much. I think it's a lot of smoke to get Mike McCarthy, I guess, not another chance at a job per se directly, but some good, resume work for his next job, whether that's as an OC, DC, obviously head coach. It is interesting. And of course, again, shout out to Kalshi. Their odds are kind of in favor of Chris Shula at this point. Now, Mike McCarthy has been floating up and down. Chris Shula was as high as 81% or 82%. It's very encouraging to see all these things. And this is the biggest report as of all, because this is exactly what we want to hear as Steelers fans, at least in my mind. Now, they're interviewing Anthony Weaver as well. They're doing a lot of different, searches. Of course, Mike McCarthy. You can see here, though, Anthony Weaver, who they're meeting in person with this week. They already met in person with Brian Flores. I believe Mike McCarthy's today, and then tomorrow is Anthony Weaver, I think. But regardless, you can see here, Anthony Weaver is flying under the radar with a lot of fan bases. He isn't a big name like Shula, Kubiak, or Shielhaas. However, he isn't as bad of a candidate as people think. And you look at some of his, the way he's led teams, obviously as an assistant head coach, a defensive line coach, Dolphins defensive coordinator. I don't hate Anthony Weaver. He's not what I want. He's not my 1A option, but boy, would I prefer Anthony Weaver over a guy like Mike McCarthy. And you might think I'm hating on Mike McCarthy. I just don't want him, right? And you can see at the bottom, Weaver is becoming one of the more intriguing candidates this coaching cycle. Definitely a name the Steelers Nation should pay a bit more attention to. And I'm open to that, right? Like at the end of the day, I'm not a coaching expert. I don't know what Omar Khan's priorities are. But what I do want is a young head coach. I'm fine with it being a first-time head coach because of how long we've not dealt with Mike Tomlin, but how long we've had Mike Tomlin and the way that the Steelers head coaching cycles usually run. They usually hire young head coaches, or at least Mike Tomlin, and then bring him on for an extended period of time. It's an intriguing, option here. And you can see here from Mike DeFabo, Steelers writer and reporter, I'm a fan of hiring an offensive mind. Right now, they're looking at two polar extremes, 62-year-old McCarthy or 35-year-old Shielhaas, or 37-year-old Clay Kubiak. Latter two have no real play calling experience. I like the middle ground of Clint Kubiak once they can interview him. And Clint's obviously a very good option. There hasn't been a lot of rumblings there. I like Clay Kubiak as well, his brother. But I do want an offensive mind, right? We've been dealing with defensive-minded head coaches for so long with Mike Tomlin, and for a team that doesn't really have much offensive firepower, I think bringing in an offensive mind would help, but that would also help propel Omar Khan to get some better pieces, to figure out what their plan is going forward surrounding their quarterback, because their defense is pretty set in stone here, right? Like a lot of these guys are going to be returning. You have some decent draft picks you've hit on. I mean, James Pierre's look great. Joey Porter's look great. Derek Carmen's look great. All these guys. Patrick Queen hasn't really worked out quite as well as we were hoping when they signed him from the Eagles, but I mean, Alex Highsmith, I'm not worried about defense. I'm more worried about offense at this point. And speaking of offense and just the way that the team works, you can see here Andy Waddell, which is currently the assistant GM right now for the Steelers. He has officially been invited, I guess, for an interview for the open GM position for the Falcons. Now, if they lose Andy Waddell, if you're unfamiliar, I think I'm pronouncing that right, Waddell, whatever. He is a very crucial part of a lot of this team's drafts, a lot of the construction of this team. This would be a huge miss for the Steelers if they lose him. They already lost Danny Smith, their special teams coordinator, who they're going to have to replace, and he's a hell of a special teams coordinator. If they lose Andy Waddle as well, I've changed my pronunciation a bunch, but comment down below the exact pronunciation. I'll heart the comment. That would be a big loss because they have so much organizational change right now. The only thing that stayed the same is, Art Rooney II and Omar Khan. Everything else seems to be changing. We'll hopefully not bring back Arthur Smith. Tons of things are moving. But it's going to be crazy, folks. And we're going to keep you up to date every step of the way, as we always do over here. But the dream offseason, hire Chris Shula, see what happens here. Maybe they bring in a Malik Willis. Maybe they bring in a Will Howard. Either way, we'll keep you up to date. Thank you guys for watching. We'll see you later. Cheers.